Hello, today I'm going to be reviewing the Little Dot MK2 headphone amplifier. Comes in a brown box, and inside of it you get these foam pieces. And that will be where the tube and the tube amp and the tubes would be in. They do include these three jumper things. I'm not sure what they are. It doesn't really say so in the manual, but I do want to point that out. But in this bag comes the RCA cable. So you get a RCA to RCA cable, and on the bag it says it's 1.8 meters, so maybe a little longer than 6 feet. And it is about a flat cable, so it doesn't really get tangled, so I do like the cable. They also include a power cord. It's about 4, 5, 6 feet, probably about 5 feet, and it's pretty thick, so it doesn't really get tangled either, so I do like it, but it is a little on the short side. They also include this card that's in Chinese. I don't know what that says. And also, since I ordered the 110 volt version, because that's the power version that I need for the United States, they do include an English manual. On the bottom of this page on the right side, I'm not sure if you can read that, but in the stock settings, the jumpers are set to high impedance. And then at the top of this other page here, it tells you what tubes is compatible. So I'm not sure if you can read that, but I'll probably include that in the description. Now, I tested this amp mostly only on the stock tubes with the stock jumper settings set to high impedance. So here's the front of the amp. That's what that looks like. And the only other thing they do include is a 3.5 to 1/4 inch adapter. So you just plug your 3.5 headphone cable into this adapter, and then you plug this adapter into the amp. And it goes in and comes out pretty smooth. The volume knob is pretty smooth, and I am going to be comparing this to the Darkvoice 33.6 SE, and I would say this volume knob is smoother and easier to turn than the Darkvoice, and it does have numbers around the volume knob. Now, before we continue, I want to point out two negatives. Is that if you only have it at volume 5 or lower, you only hear volume coming out the left channel. Until you get to about volume 10 or higher, then the channel volume is matched. The other negative is that these stock tubes have tube noise. Now, I do have some aftermarket tubes, and those still have noise as well. And about at volume 30, you can really start to hear it, just a little bit, depending on how sensitive your headphones are. And then once you get to about volume 50, it gets really loud, and even more loud as you go above volume 50. And then now for powering the headphones that I currently have, I have Sennheiser 660S's. You need about volume 26, 25 to make them as loud as you can bear. And then the M1060Cs, you need about volume 30. And the Koss only need about volume 20. Now, certain video games that I tested have really loud master volume. And I, on the Sennheiser 660Ss, I need to go as low as volume 10 on this. And this is set to high impedance, I believe, at the default settings. And then certain video games that I tested actually need to go all the way up to about volume 40, for example. So let's go ahead and continue. Actually, before we continue, now these tubes, if you try to push them down, they don't really go in. So you kind of have to push them down and wiggle them just a little bit just to make them go in, because it doesn't really go in easy. I just do want to point that out. Now on the back, you get an on and off switch, and a part here where you plug in your power cord. And what I noticed that when you unplug the power cord, this square black piece kind of moves, so it isn't really made very good. Unlike the Darkvoice, where they actually put 2 screws in, so this part here doesn't move. And then you get red and white RCA ins, and then also red and white RCA outs. And the other negative I want to point out is that these RCA outs do not work on my powered monitors. Even if I lower the Windows volume, or only put the volume up a little bit on the little dot, it sounds like it's going to blow out my speaker drivers. There's lots of cone breakup. So it doesn't work with my powered monitors for some reason. So let's go ahead and talk about the sound quality, which I'm going to be comparing to the Darkvoice with the Darkvoice stock tubes versus the Little Dot MK2 with the stock tubes and the stock jumper impedance settings, because you can't open these up with the screws and change those jumpers. So we're only going to be comparing its stock form. So the first thing I'm going to point out is that this is $130, the Darkvoice is $200, and it's just an amp, no DAC included. And is that the Darkvoice, I'm going to have to say, is the better sounding amp overall. And it's more natural sounding, and it's more dark and warm sounding, and maybe just a tiny bit less clear sounding than this. Well, this amp sounds a little brighter, makes the highs brighter, and has a more cool sound to it, but it's a little less unnatural sounding. So let's go ahead and compare a few things that I want to mention. The Darkvoice has a little bit better bass, it's a little stronger, and it's also a little warmer too. The vocals on the Darkvoice is, not only does every sound effect sound more natural in the Darkvoice and just better, but like the vocals, for example, sound more natural sounding than the Little Dot. And then also, so the Darkvoice has better vocal separation, smoother vocals, more detail. So like if I'm listening to a song like Fifth Harmony, That's My Girl, I just want to point that as an example. There's like 5 singers in that song, and you can really not only pick out each singer and hear them very good quality, but you can also hear like what direction they're coming from. So it has better vocals. The highs, like I did say, the Little Dot has brighter highs, but I wouldn't say the Darkvoice has less detail in the highs. It's probably just as good detail, maybe even better. It's just less fatiguing sounding, because the highs on this can sound a little more sharp. And then the Darkvoice has like more bit depth. For example, let's say if you have a vocalist or an instrument and they're playing very soft to very loud, you can hear the volume difference to soft to loud. So there's more bit depth in each thing that's being played. So the Darkvoice has higher fidelity than this amp. Another example would be the attack and decay of a drum. So if somebody's playing a drum, like let's say pretty hard, there's going to be more attack on the Darkvoice, and when you hear the drum after it gets hit, you're going to hear more decay in that drum sound, like a little more echo. And that's also another thing on the Darkvoice is certain singers on certain songs, you're also going to hear a little more echo if it's like a live performance or something, or just something that's supposed to have echo in it. You're going to have more echo on the Darkvoice, and that's just the more bit depth as well. And it's a more natural sounding amp than this, just overall more better sounding than this. Now for Soundstage, they're about equal. So when I'm doing my gaming test, for example, the Soundstage is quite equal. But since the Darkvoice is just a better sounding amp, it also has that more accurate imaging from right to left, and also the better instrument separation and vocal separation and just bit depth. But the main thing I noticed on the Little Dot, if I have like one of those circled metal trash bins with the fire coming out of it, the Little Dot will make it sound like, if I put it right behind me, the Little Dot's going to make it sound like it's coming like 5 or 10 feet away. Well, the Darkvoice is more accurate, and it actually sounds like it's right behind me. And if you have like footsteps or just sound effects that's coming in certain directions, the Darkvoice is a little more accurate, so you can actually isolate where the sound is coming from a little bit better. So overall, that's pretty much mostly what I want to talk about this amp. I do want to mention that the M1060Cs don't really like the tube amp too much. I prefer solid state over tube. And the Sennheiser 660Ss, I didn't really have enough time to test them on the solid states because I just got that. But they sound okay. But I will say something like the SHP 9500s or like my Koss headphones, they actually sound better on a tube amp than a solid state. So the tube amp is actually better. But overall, that's all I really want to talk about this. So I'd probably recommend the Darkvoice over this. But wait for part 2, because in part 2 I am going to compare some aftermarket tubes. And I will also test the jumper settings on this amp. So overall, thank you for watching.